classroom was silent except for the soft hum of air recyclers. 20 young alien cadets sat in neat rows, their purple skin gleaming under the bright lights. They whispered to each other and laughed quietly. Today was supposed to be an easy class about humans, those weak creatures from the small blue planet. Zexathera limped into the room. His left arm was missing below the elbow. Deep scars ran across his face like lightning marks. His right leg made a soft clicking sound with each step. The prosthetic joint needed oil again. The cadets stopped talking and stared at their instructor. "Good morning," Zexathera said. His voice was rough like broken glass. "I am Commander Zexathera. I fought humans for 3 years during the war. Today I will tell you about them." A young cadet named Crix raised his hand. "Sir, why do we need to learn about humans? The war ended 15 years ago. We won. They surrendered." Zexathera looked at Crix for a long moment. "Did we win, cadet? Did we really win?" "Of course we did," another cadet said. "Humans are just animals with tools. They have no real weapons, no plasma cannons, no energy shields. They still use metal bullets and chemical explosives." The other cadets laughed. Zexathera did not laugh. "I see," he said. "You think humans are weak because their weapons are simple. You think they are stupid because they use old technology." He walked to the front of the room. "Let me tell you about Kepler Station." The room became quiet again. Even the air recyclers seemed to stop humming. Kepler Station was our forward base near human space. We had 3,000 soldiers there, the best fighters in the Galactic Alliance. We had energy weapons, battle armor, and force fields. We thought we were safe. Zexathera activated the wall screen. It showed a space station floating among the stars. The station looked like a metal flower, with 5 arms reaching out from the center. The humans attacked with 200 Marines. Just 200. We laughed at them too. Our commander said it would be over in 1 hour. We were right about the time. We were wrong about who would win. A cadet shifted in her seat. "How could 200 humans beat 3,000 of us?" "That is what I asked myself," Zexathera said. "The humans came in old ships. Their metal hulls were painted and repainted so many times you could see the layers. Their weapons were loud and crude. When they fired, smoke came out of the barrels." Touched the scar on his face. "I was a young officer then, like you. I commanded a squad of 50 soldiers. We were sent to defend Sector 7. We had the best position. High ground, clear sight lines, and energy barriers." The screen changed to show the inside of a space station corridor. It was wide and bright with white walls. The humans came down this hallway. We could hear them before we saw them. They were singing. "Singing?" a cadet asked. "Yes, singing. They had a song about their home planet. Something about purple mountains and golden grain fields. Their voices echoed off the walls. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time." Zexathera paused and looked out the window at the alien city beyond. "We opened fire with everything we had. Plasma bolts filled the air like angry lightning. The humans kept coming. When one fell, another took his place. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used their hands." The room was completely silent now. The cadets leaned forward in their seats. Their leader was a man named Jake Harrison. He was tall for a human with brown hair and green eyes. He had a scar on his chin from some old fight. When the battle started, he was calm like still water. He gave orders in a quiet voice. His soldiers obeyed without question. The screen showed a human face, weathered and serious, with kind eyes that looked dangerous. Harrison's unit was cut off from the others, surrounded, no way out. We offered them surrender. They could live if they laid down their weapons. Do you know what Harrison said? The cadets shook their heads. He said, "We didn't come here to surrender. We came here to win." Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. Zexathera limped to his desk and sat down heavily. His missing arm phantom ached in the cold air. The humans fought for 6 days. 6 days without sleep, without food, without reinforcements. We kept waiting for them to break. Humans are supposed to be weak, right? They need 8 hours of sleep every day. They need food every few hours. They need water. He looked at each cadet in turn. But these humans did not break. When they ran out of food, they kept fighting. When they ran out of water, they kept fighting. When they were wounded and bleeding, they kept fighting. A cadet named Vex raised her hand. What about their wounded? Surely they slowed down the others. Zexathara made a sound that might have been a laugh. The wounded humans were the most dangerous of all. A human with a broken leg would crawl through ventilation shafts to attack from behind. A human with a broken arm would strap his weapon to his body and keep shooting. The screen showed grainy security footage of humans moving through the station corridors. They looked tired and hurt, but they never stopped moving. There was a woman named Amy Foster. She was their explosives expert, small, maybe 5 feet tall. She had red hair and freckles like tiny stars on her face. She looked like she should be taking care of children, not fighting wars. The image changed to show a young human woman with bright red hair and a gentle smile. Foster's job was to destroy our main power generator. She had to crawl through 200 meters of burning wreckage to reach it. The air was full of toxic smoke. The metal was hot enough to melt flesh. Any sane creature would have turned back. Zexathara stood up again and walked to the window. Foster made it to the generator. She set her charges, but the timer was broken. Someone had to stay behind to set off the explosion manually. It meant certain death. The cadets waited. The silence stretched like a tight rope. Foster volunteered. She sent a message to her commander. It said, "Tell my mom I kept my promise." Then she triggered the explosion. The entire section of the station went dark. 50 of our soldiers died in that blast. Foster died too, but she completed her mission. One of the cadets made a soft sound of distress. Why would she do that? Why would any creature choose to die? That is what we could not understand, Zexathara said. Our scientists studied human behavior for months. They said humans have something we do not. They called it honor. It makes humans do impossible things. The screen showed more footage of the battle. Humans sharing their last water with wounded comrades. Humans carrying injured soldiers on their backs while under fire. Humans standing guard over the dead bodies of their friends. The battle ended on the 7th day. We had lost 1,500 soldiers. The humans had lost all but 30 of their 200 Marines. By all military logic, we had won. We controlled the station. Most of the humans were dead. Zexathara turned back to face the class. But I did not feel like we had won. None of us did. The surviving humans were captured, but they did not act like prisoners. They looked at us with pity, as if we were the ones who had lost something important. The oldest cadet, a female named Trix, spoke carefully. "Commander, what happened to the human survivors? They were exchanged for our prisoners 6 months later. When they left, some of our own soldiers wanted to go with them. 3 of my men requested transfers to non-combat units. They said they could not fight humans anymore. Not because they were afraid of dying, but because they were afraid of living after killing such brave creatures." The screen went dark. The classroom lights seemed dimmer now. That was my first battle against humans. It was not my last. Each time it was the same story. Humans who should have surrendered kept fighting. Humans who should have died kept living. Humans who should have hated us showed us mercy. Zexathara looked at each cadet again. "You asked me if we won the war. I will ask you the same question after you hear all my stories. For now, think about this. If humans are just animals with tools, why am I missing an arm? Why do I wake up at night remembering Jake Harrison's smile? Why do I still hear Amy Foster singing in the corridors of my dreams?" The bell rang. Class was over. The cadets filed out quietly. No one was laughing anymore. Zexathara remained at the window, looking out at the alien city. Somewhere out there, humans walked among the other species. They sold food, fixed machines, taught children, and healed the sick. They looked harmless now, peaceful. But Zexathara remembered the war. He remembered what humans could do when they had to fight. He remembered why the galaxy had learned to fear and respect the creatures from the small blue planet. Tomorrow he would tell the cadets about the medics, about Dr. Ben Williams and what he did at New Terra. The cadets would learn that humans were most dangerous not when they were trying to kill, but when they were trying to save lives. The old warrior touched his missing arm and smiled. It was not a happy smile. The next morning, the cadets entered the classroom differently. They did not laugh or whisper jokes. They sat quietly and waited for Zexathera to begin. The old veteran noticed the change, but said nothing about it. "Yesterday you learned about human soldiers," Zexathera said. "Today I will tell you about human healers. This might disturb you more than the story of warriors." A cadet named Plex raised his hand. "How can healers be more frightening than fighters?" Zexathera activated the wall screen. It showed a planet, covered in red dust and black smoke. Cities burned in the distance. "This is New Terra. It was a human colony world with 2 million people. We surrounded it with our fleet and demanded surrender." The image changed to show alien warships in orbit above the burning planet. Their hulls gleamed like silver daggers against the stars. The humans refused to surrender. They said the planet was their home and they would defend it. So we began the siege. We cut off all supply ships, no food, no medicine, no reinforcements could reach them. Zexathera touched his scarred face. "I was a captain then. I commanded a ground assault unit. We landed on the surface to take the main city. The fighting was brutal. Both sides lost many soldiers every day. The screen showed ruined streets filled with rubble and smoke. Bodies lay scattered among the broken buildings. That is where I met Dr. Ben Williams. He was a human medic attached to their Marine unit. Williams was not a big man. Maybe average height with gray hair and soft brown eyes. He wore thick glasses that made him look like a teacher, not a soldier. The image showed a middle-aged human man in medical gear. His uniform was stained with blood and dirt, but his hands were clean and steady. Our military doctrine is simple. When a soldier is wounded, we move him to a safe area for treatment. If the area is not safe, we wait until it becomes safe. If the soldier dies while waiting, that is unfortunate, but acceptable." Zexathera paused and looked at the cadets. "Humans do not think this way." A cadet named Quinn asked, "What do you mean?" "I mean human medics go wherever wounded soldiers are, no matter how dangerous." I watched Dr. Williams crawl across an active battlefield to reach a wounded Marine. Plasma bolts were flying over his head. Explosions were going off all around him. Any rational creature would have stayed in cover. The screen showed grainy combat footage of a human medic crawling through smoke and fire. Williams reached the wounded Marine. The boy was maybe 20 years old with blonde hair and blue eyes. His name was Private Tony Clark. A plasma bolt had hit his leg. The wound was bad, but not fatal if treated quickly. Zexathera limped to his desk and sat down. Dr. Williams began treating Clark right there in the middle of the battle. He did not move the patient to safety first. He did not wait for the shooting to stop. He just started working. The cadets leaned forward. They could not understand such behavior. While Williams worked on Clark, more wounded soldiers called for help. There was a woman named Sergeant Lucy Brooks. Shrapnel had cut her arm badly. There was Corporal Pete Murphy with a chest wound. There was Private Maria Lopez with burns on her face. The images on the screen showed more wounded humans scattered across the battlefield. Any sane medic would choose the patient most likely to survive. Save who you can save, leave the others. This is logical. This is efficient. This is what we would do. Zexathera stood up again and walked to the window. Dr. Williams tried to save them all. All of them. He moved from one wounded soldier to another. He carried medical supplies in a backpack that was bigger than he was. When he ran out of bandages, he tore up his own shirt. When he ran out of medicine, he used whatever he could find. A cadet named Vex spoke up. "But that is impossible. One person cannot treat so many wounded in a combat zone." "You are right," Zexathera said. It was impossible, but Dr. Williams did not seem to know that. He worked for 18 hours straight without rest, without food, without water. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, but he kept working. The screen showed more footage of the human medic moving between patients. His face was gray with fatigue, but his movements never stopped. Then something happened that changed everything. Dr. Williams was treating a wounded Marine when he noticed something wrong with his own arm. A piece of shrapnel had cut him hours earlier, but he had ignored it. Now the wound was infected. Badly infected. Sexathera turned back to face the class. The infection was spreading quickly. In a few hours it would reach his heart and kill him. The only way to save his life was to cut off his arm immediately. The cadets made sounds of distress. Several of them touched their own arms protectively. Dr. Williams looked at his infected arm. Then he looked at the wounded soldiers around him. They were depending on him. Without a medic, many of them would die. He had a choice to make. The room was completely silent. Even the air recyclers seemed to hold their breath. Williams asked another soldier to help him, a young Marine named Corporal Sue Green. She had no medical training, but she was calm under pressure. Williams told her exactly what to do. The screen showed two humans in a makeshift medical tent. One was lying on a table while the other held a medical saw. Williams cut off his own arm to save his life. He stayed awake during the operation so he could guide Corporal Green. When it was over, he rested for 1 hour. 1 hour. Then he went back to work. A cadet named Crix made a choking sound. He continued working with only one arm? Yes. Williams learned to use medical tools with his left hand. He was slower than before, but he never stopped. He worked for 3 more days, treating wounded soldiers and teaching other Marines basic medical skills. Sexathera activated a new image on the screen. It showed a human with one arm working over a wounded soldier. That is when I understood something terrible about humans. They will hurt themselves to help others. They will sacrifice their own bodies to save strangers. This makes no sense to us, but to humans it is natural. The old veteran sat down heavily in his chair. There was another human medic named Carol Davis. She was a field surgeon, which means she did major operations right on the battlefield. Davis was a small woman with dark skin and gentle hands. She looked like she would be more comfortable in a garden than a war zone. The screen showed a human woman in surgical clothes. Her face was kind but determined. Davis set up her operating room in the basement of a bombed building. She had no proper equipment, no clean water, no electricity. She used car batteries to power her surgical lights. She boiled water in cooking pots to sterilize her tools. Sexathera shook his head slowly. Davis worked for 72 hours without sleep. 72 hours. She performed 37 major operations in those 3 days. Soldiers with chest wounds, head injuries, missing limbs. She saved lives that any rational person would have given up for lost. A cadet raised her hand. How did she stay awake for so long? Other humans brought her coffee and food. They took turns holding lights while she worked. When her hands started shaking from exhaustion, they steadied her arms. The entire human community worked together to keep their medic functioning. The screen showed humans working together in the makeshift hospital. Some held lights, others carried supplies, and all of them looked determined. On the 3rd day, Davis collapsed. Her body simply could not continue. But even then, she tried to keep working. She taught other humans how to do simple procedures. She wrote instructions on pieces of paper with her shaking hands. Sexathera stood up and walked to the screen. That was when we realized something that changed the entire war. Wounded humans do not become useless. They become more determined. The image changed to show human patients helping to treat other patients. Men with broken legs were mixing medicine. Women with bandaged arms were holding surgical tools. I watched a human named Sergeant Tim Johnson return to combat 3 days after losing his left foot. He had made a wooden prosthetic and wrapped it with metal strips. He could barely walk, but he insisted on fighting. The screen showed a human soldier with a crude artificial foot leading other soldiers into battle. Johnson was not unusual. Humans with missing fingers learned to shoot differently. Humans with eye patches became snipers. Humans with broken ribs strapped themselves together and kept going. We could not understand this behavior. Sexathera turned back to the cadets. Our psychologists studied captured human medics. They wanted to understand why humans risk their lives for wounded strangers. The answer was always the same: because someone has to. A long silence filled the room. The cadets looked uncomfortable and confused. The siege of New Terra lasted 4 months. We eventually captured the planet, but the cost was enormous. We lost more soldiers to human medics than to human weapons. Cadet Plex asked, "How can medics kill soldiers?" They did not kill our soldiers directly, but every human they saved came back to fight us again. Every wounded human who returned to battle was angrier and more dangerous than before. They fought like creatures with nothing left to lose. Zexathera activated the final image. It showed Dr. Williams working in a prisoner camp after the siege ended. Dr. Williams was captured when the city fell. Do you know what he did in the prison camp? He treated wounded alien soldiers. Our soldiers, the same creatures who had been trying to kill him for months. The cadets stared at the image in disbelief. The third day brought rain to the alien city outside. The cadets entered the classroom quietly, their purple skin darker in the dim light. They had stopped making jokes about humans. Now they watched Zexathara with careful eyes, waiting for the next terrible story. Today I will tell you about space combat, Zexathara began, about how humans hunt in the dark between stars. This story takes place in the Vega asteroid field, 2 years into the war. The wall screen flickered to life. It showed a vast field of floating rocks, some as small as houses, others as large as cities. Starlight gleamed off their surfaces like scattered diamonds. I was a fleet commander by then. I had 12 ships under my command, fast attack cruisers with the best sensors and weapons in the galaxy. We could detect any ship from 1,000,000 kilometers away. We could destroy any target with our plasma cannons. Zexathara touched the control pad on his desk. The screen showed sleek alien warships moving through the asteroid field in perfect formation. Our mission was simple: find and destroy human supply convoys trying to reach their outer colonies. Intelligence said the humans were using old cargo ships with minimal weapons, easy targets for experienced hunters like us. A cadet named Trix raised her hand. Did the humans have warships in the area? That was the problem, Zexathara said. We never saw any human warships, only cargo ships and small transports. But our supply convoys kept disappearing. Ships would enter human space and never return. No distress signals, no wreckage, nothing. The old veteran limped to the window and looked out at the rain. Admiral Korth decided to send a patrol to investigate. My fleet was chosen because we had the most experience fighting humans in ground combat. The Admiralty thought space combat would be easier. He turned back to face the class. We were wrong. The screen changed to show a human face. The man had gray hair and calm blue eyes. He looked like a teacher or a shopkeeper, not a military officer. This is Captain Roy Peterson. He commanded a human stealth ship called the Phantom. It was an old cargo vessel converted for military use. No advanced weapons, no energy shields, just metal armor and chemical rockets. Zexathara sat down at his desk. Peterson had served in their merchant marine for 20 years before the war. He knew every trade route, every asteroid field, every place a ship could hide. The humans made him a captain because he understood how to move cargo without being seen. A cadet asked, "How can an old cargo ship fight military cruisers?" That is what we wanted to know. So we set a trap. We sent 3 supply ships through the asteroid field as bait. The rest of my fleet waited in ambush positions. When the humans attacked our convoy, we would surround them and destroy them. The screen showed alien ships positioned around the asteroid field like hunters waiting for prey. The first day, nothing happened. Our convoy moved slowly through the asteroids, sending out signals that would attract human attention. We waited for them to take the bait. Zexathara activated new images on the screen. They showed empty space and floating rocks. The second day, one of our supply ships reported a problem with their engines. They were falling behind the convoy. We told them to continue on their current course. We would protect them. The old veteran's voice grew quiet. The supply ship exploded 6 hours later. No warning, no enemy contact. One moment it was there, the next moment it was burning metal floating in space. The cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We searched the area for hours. Our sensors found nothing. No enemy ships, no weapon signatures, no trace of who had attacked us. It was like the ship had just decided to explode by itself. Zexathara stood up and began pacing, slowly around the room. The next day, our second supply ship had problems with their life support systems. They were leaking air and needed to dock with one of our cruisers for repairs. He stopped in front of the screen. When the supply ship docked, it exploded. The blast damaged our cruiser and killed 40 of our crew. Still no sign of the enemy. Cadet named Vex made a nervous sound. How were the humans attacking without being detected? We did not know. Our sensors were the best in the galaxy. If there had been ships within 1,000,000 kilometers, we would have seen them. But Captain Peterson had learned something from 20 years of moving cargo through dangerous space. The screen showed new footage of the asteroid field. This time, the rocks seemed different somehow, more menacing. Peterson was not trying to fight us ship to ship. He was hunting us like humans hunted animals on their home planet. He used the asteroids as cover. He used our own expectations against us. Zexathara activated a detailed scan of one large asteroid. Look at this rock carefully. What do you see? The cadet stared at the image. It looked like a normal asteroid covered in ice and metal ore. Look closer. Look at the shadow side where our sensors cannot penetrate. The image enhanced, showing a dark area behind the asteroid. Suddenly, the outline of a human ship became visible. Peterson's ship was painted black. He attached magnetic clamps to the asteroids and waited. For days, for weeks. His crew lived on minimal power and recycled air. They ate cold food and slept in shifts. They became part of the asteroid field. The screen showed more images of human ships attached to rocks like metal parasites. This is not how civilized species fight wars. We announce our presence. We challenge enemies to honorable combat. We use sensors and computer targeting. Humans hide in shadows and strike without warning. Zexathara returned to his desk. But Peterson was not finished teaching us about human hunting methods. On the 4th day, our remaining supply ship sent a distress signal. They had found survivors from the first ship that exploded. The image changed to show a small escape pod floating among the asteroids. The survivors were 3 human civilians, a man named George Adams, a woman named Ruth Miller, and a young girl about 12 years old. They looked frightened and hungry. They begged our ship to rescue them. A cadet asked, "What did you do?" We rescued them, of course. They were non-combatants, civilians. Even in war, we follow certain rules about protecting innocent people. Zexathara's expression darkened. The humans brought 3 small bags with them. Personal belongings, they said. Clothes and family pictures. We did not search the bags carefully because they were just civilians. The screen showed 3 humans in ragged clothes, standing in the cargo bay of an alien ship. George Adams was not a civilian. He was Lieutenant Commander Adams of the Human Navy. Ruth Miller was Major Miller, a demolitions expert. The young girl was actually Corporal Helen Carter, age 22, trained as a sniper and saboteur. The cadets made sounds of shock and disbelief. The bags contained weapons, explosives, and communication equipment. While we thought we were rescuing helpless civilians, we were actually bringing enemy soldiers onto our ship. Zexathara activated footage from inside the alien ship. It showed the 3 humans moving through corridors with military precision. Adams, Miller, and Carter took control of our supply ship from the inside. They killed the crew quietly, one by one. They used the ship's communication system to send false reports to my fleet. Then they loaded the cargo hold with explosives and flew it into our main cruiser. The screen showed a massive explosion in space. Pieces of burning metal spun away into the darkness. That explosion killed 300 of my soldiers and destroyed our most powerful ship, all because we tried to be merciful to enemy civilians who were not really civilians. A long silence filled the room. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the windows. But the worst was yet to come. Peterson had been watching us the entire time. He knew our patrol patterns. He knew our weak points. He knew when we would be most vulnerable. The screen showed the remaining alien ships trying to regroup after the explosion. My fleet was in chaos. We were trying to rescue survivors and repair damage. That is when Peterson struck with his main attack. not against our strongest ship, but against our weakest moment. New images showed multiple human ships emerging from behind asteroids. They looked like ghosts materializing from empty space. Peterson had 6 other ships hidden throughout the asteroid field. Old cargo vessels like his own, painted black and crewed by humans who understood patience. They had been waiting for weeks, watching us, learning our habits. Zexathera touched his scarred face. The human ships did not try to fight us directly. Instead, they used what humans call guerrilla tactics. Hit and run, strike and disappear, make the enemy afraid of shadows. The screen showed brief flashes of combat. Human ships appearing long enough to fire their weapons, then vanishing back into the asteroid field. We could not target what we could not see. Our powerful weapons were useless against enemies who refused to stand and fight. Every time we thought we had found them, they were somewhere else. A cadet named Quinn asked, "How did the battle end?" It ended when Peterson sent us a message. He said we could leave the asteroid field safely if we promised never to return. He said human space was closed to alien military ships. Zexathera played a recording of the human captain's voice. It was calm and polite, like someone giving directions to a lost traveler. Peterson said he had no desire to kill more alien soldiers. He said we were just following orders, like his own people. But he also said that any alien ship that threatened human colonies would disappear without a trace. The 4th morning was cold and gray. The cadets entered the classroom with heavy steps. They had been thinking about Zexathera's stories for 3 days now. Sleep did not come easily when you learned that shadows might hide enemies and rescue missions might be traps. Zexathera waited until all the cadets were seated before he spoke. Today I will tell you about Prison Camp 7. This story might be the hardest one to understand. It is about what happened when we tried to contain humans. The wall screen showed a large compound surrounded by energy barriers and guard towers. The buildings were gray metal blocks arranged in neat rows. It looked secure and escape-proof. Prison Camp 7 was built to hold human prisoners of war. We designed it using our best security technology: force field walls that could stop plasma, weapons, guard towers with automatic targeting systems, sensor networks that could detect movement anywhere in the compound. Zexathera activated a detailed view of the prison layout. The camp could hold 5,000 prisoners. We had 2,000 guards and the most advanced containment systems in the galaxy. The humans called it Fort Knox, after some old fortress on their home planet. A cadet named Crix asked how many human prisoners were held there. At first, only 300. All military personnel captured during various battles. Soldiers, pilots, ship crews. We thought 300 humans would be easy to manage with 2,000 guards. The screen showed human prisoners in gray uniforms moving through the compound. They looked tired but not defeated. The senior prisoner was Colonel Dan White. He was 45 years old with brown hair going gray at the temples. White had been a teacher before the war. He taught history at a human university. When the war started, he joined their military because he said someone had to protect the children. The image focused on a human man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked more like a grandfather than a dangerous prisoner. Colonel White did something we did not expect. Instead of trying to escape immediately, he began studying our prison system. He watched the guards. He learned their schedules. He figured out how our technology worked. Zexathera limped to his desk and sat down, heavily. White also did something else. He started teaching the other prisoners, not escape techniques or combat skills. He taught them our language, our culture, our history. A cadet named Vex made a confused sound. Why would prisoners want to learn about their captors? That is what I asked myself. I was the prison commander by then. I watched the humans through security cameras every day. They had classes in the morning and work details in the afternoon. In the evening, they would sit in groups and talk about what they had learned. The screen showed human prisoners gathered in circles, listening to Colonel White speak. White taught them that our species came from a desert planet where water was scarce. He explained how this shaped our military culture. We value efficiency and conservation. We do not waste resources on hopeless causes. Zexathera touched the control pad. The image changed to show human prisoners talking with alien guards. Then something strange happened. The prisoners started talking to our guards, not arguing or complaining, just talking. They asked about our families, our home worlds, our hopes for after the war. The old veteran stood up and walked to the window. I remember the first time I heard a human guard speaking our language. Private First Class Kate Russell was talking to Guard Sergeant Nex about his children. She was asking about their school, their favorite games, their dreams for the future. The screen showed a young human woman with red hair talking to a tall alien guard. Both of them were smiling. Kate Russell had been a school teacher before the war, like Colonel White. She was captured during the evacuation of New Boston Colony. Russell missed her own students, so she started caring about our children instead. A cadet asked, "Was this part of an escape plan?" We thought so at first. I increased security and monitored all conversations between prisoners and guards. Was looking for signs of bribery or manipulation. But the humans were not trying to corrupt our guards. They were just being kind to them. Zexathera returned to face the class. Major Kate Russell organized a birthday party for Guard Sergeant Nex's daughter. The prisoners made decorations from scraps of paper and sang happy birthday songs in our language. Nex cried during the ceremony. The image showed humans and aliens standing together around a small celebration. Everyone looked happy. That was when I realized the humans were not trying to escape from Prison Camp 7. They were trying to escape with it. They wanted to take our guards with them when they left. The cadets stared at their instructor with wide eyes. The escape plan took 8 months to complete, not because it was complicated, but because the humans refused to leave anyone behind. Anyone. They would not abandon a single guard who had shown them kindness. Zexathera activated new footage showing the prison compound at night. The escape began during the shift change on a Tuesday night. Sergeant Matt Green was in charge of the operation. He had been a construction foreman before the war, so he understood how to coordinate large groups of workers. The screen showed a human man with calloused hands and intelligent eyes directing other prisoners with hand signals. Green's team had spent months learning every detail of the prison's operation, not by spying or stealing information, but by helping our guards with their daily tasks. They volunteered for extra work details. They fixed broken equipment. They made our jobs easier. The images showed humans working alongside alien guards, repairing machinery, and organizing supplies. When the escape began, something unprecedented happened. 300 human prisoners walked out of their cells, through the security barriers and past the guard towers, and 400 alien guards walked out with them. The cadets made sounds of disbelief. Several of them leaned forward as if they had not heard correctly. The guards were not forced to leave. They were not threatened or coerced. They chose to go with the humans because 8 months of kindness had changed their minds about the war. Zexathera played audio from the security recordings. Human and alien voices could be heard talking together as they moved through the compound. Colonel White had taught our guards that there were other ways to live, ways that did not involve conquering weaker species or fighting endless wars. The humans offered them something we had never given them, a choice. The screen showed the mixed group of humans and aliens moving through the forest outside the prison camp. They helped each other climb over obstacles and shared water from their canteens. I was notified of the escape 3 hours after it began. By then, the prisoners and guards were already at the pickup point where human rescue ships were waiting. I mobilized every available unit to recapture them. New images showed alien military vehicles racing through the night toward the forest. We surrounded the pickup area just as the human ships were landing. 700 escaped prisoners and guards were trapped in a clearing with nowhere to run. I ordered them to surrender immediately. Zexathera's voice grew quiet. Colonel White walked out to meet me. He was not armed. He did not look afraid. He just looked sad, like a teacher disappointed in a student who had failed an important test. The screen showed the human colonel standing, alone between two armed forces. White said he was sorry that we could not understand what the humans were trying to teach us. He said they had hoped to show us a better way to solve conflicts. Then he made an offer that changed everything. A cadet asked, "What kind of offer?" White said the humans would return to prison voluntarily if we allowed the alien guards to choose freely whether to stay or go. No punishment for the guards who had helped them, no forced return to duty, just a free choice. Zexathara sat down again. His prosthetic leg made clicking sounds in the quiet room. I should have refused. I should have arrested everyone and court-martialed the guards for treason. But I was curious to see what would happen, so I agreed to White's terms. The screen showed alien guards standing in formation while Colonel White spoke to them in their own language. White explained the choice clearly. The guards could return to their duties with no punishment. They could transfer to non-combat positions, or they could request asylum with the human colonies. All options were acceptable. The old veteran activated a new image showing the guards making their decisions. 60% of our guards chose to stay with us. They returned to duty and continued their careers in the military. 40% chose to go with the humans. They boarded the rescue ships and were taken to human space. A long silence filled the room. The cadets looked shocked and confused. The humans kept their promise. Colonel White and the military prisoners returned to camp voluntarily. They went back to their cells and resumed their normal routines. They had gained nothing from their escape except the friendship of 400 alien soldiers. Zexathara turned off the screen and faced the class. That escape changed our entire approach to containing human prisoners. We realized that humans do not try to break out of prisons. They try to break into hearts and minds. They turn enemies into friends through patience and kindness. A cadet named Trix asked, "What happened to Prison Camp 7? It was closed 6 months later. We could not find enough guards willing to work there." The fifth morning brought clear skies and bright sunlight. The cadets entered the classroom with different expressions than they had worn 4 days ago. The laughter was gone, replaced by thoughtful silence. They had learned too much to find humans amusing anymore. Zexathara stood at the window watching the alien city wake up. In the streets below, humans walked alongside other species, going to work, buying food, living normal lives. It was hard to believe these same creatures had once been the galaxy's most feared enemy. "Today I will tell you how the war ended," Zexathara said without turning around. "This story is about the price of victory and the cost of defeat. When I finish, you will understand why I am here instead of commanding a fleet." The wall screen activated, showing a massive space station orbiting a blue-green planet. The station was larger than most cities, with docking bays for thousands of ships. This is Harmony Station, where the peace negotiations took place. Both sides agreed to meet here because it was neutral territory, owned by the Centauri Trade Federation. The talks lasted 6 months. Zexathara turned to face the class. I was part of the alien delegation. I had been promoted to admiral after the prison camp incident. The High Command thought my experience with humans would be valuable during negotiations. The screen showed 2 groups of beings sitting across from each other at a large conference table. Aliens on one side, humans on the other. The human delegation was led by General Paul Adams. He was an older man with white hair and calm eyes. Adams had lost 2 sons in the war, but he never spoke about revenge or punishment. He only talked about the future. The image focused on a human man in a simple blue uniform. He looked tired but determined, like someone who had carried heavy burdens for a long time. Our negotiating position was strong. We controlled most of human space. Their fleet was scattered and their colonies were under siege. By all military measures, the humans had lost the war. A cadet named Plex raised his hand. If we had won, why did we need negotiations? Why not just demand surrender? That is what our military leaders wanted to do, Zexathara replied. But there was a problem. The longer the war continued, the more our own people began to question why we were fighting. The screen showed protests in alien cities. Citizens of various species carried signs calling for peace. Stories about human behavior had spread throughout our territory. Stories about medics who healed enemy soldiers. Stories about prisoners who became friends with their guards. Stories about warriors who showed mercy to defeated enemies. Zexathara sat down at his desk. Our own news networks were reporting these stories. Our soldiers were coming home with strange ideas about honor and compassion. Young aliens were asking uncomfortable questions about our military policies. The image changed to show alien families welcoming home returning soldiers. Many of our veterans were suffering from what humans call moral injury. They had nightmares not about human violence, but about human kindness. They could not forget the enemy medic who had saved their life, or the prisoner who had shared food with hungry guards. A cadet asked, "What did General Adams propose during the negotiations?" Adams made an offer that shocked everyone. The humans would surrender completely and unconditionally. They would disband their military and accept alien occupation of their worlds. In exchange, they asked for only one thing. The room became completely silent. Even the air recyclers seemed to hold their breath. They wanted the right to continue existing as they were. No forced changes to their culture, no restrictions on their art, music, or literature, no limits on travel or trade with other species. They wanted to surrender their weapons but keep their way of life. Zexathera activated new footage showing General Adams speaking at the negotiating table. Adams said the humans had learned they could not win through military force. They were willing to accept defeat if it meant their children could grow up in peace. He said freedom was more important than independence. The old veteran stood up and began pacing slowly around the room. Our delegation was suspicious. This offer seemed too good to be true. Why would any species surrender so completely without demanding guarantees or protections? The screen showed alien negotiators having heated discussions among themselves. Admiral Korth believed the humans were planning something. He thought the surrender was a trick designed to lower our guard. But General Adams answered every question, honestly, and provided complete access to all human military installations. Zexathera stopped in front of the screen. The humans kept their promise. They dismantled their warships and turned their weapons over to our forces. They opened their borders and welcomed alien administrators to their worlds. The image showed human ships being deconstructed in orbital shipyards while alien officials watched. The treaty was signed on a Tuesday morning. I remember the date because it was the day everything changed, even though we did not realize it at the time. The screen displayed the official treaty signing ceremony. Beings from dozens of species watched as the documents were signed. Ambassador Mary Thompson signed for the humans. She was a small woman with silver hair and a grandmother's smile. Thompson had been a diplomat for 30 years before the war. She specialized in trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The image focused on a human woman placing her signature on the treaty documents. After the signing, Thompson made a speech that I still remember word for word. She said the humans were grateful for the opportunity to learn from other species. She said they looked forward to sharing their own knowledge and culture with their new alien neighbors. Zexathera returned to his desk and sat down heavily. Within 6 months, we realized that the humans had not surrendered to us. We had surrendered to them. The cadets made sounds of confusion and disbelief. The humans began doing what they had always done. They opened restaurants serving their food. They started schools teaching their languages. They created entertainment that made other species laugh and cry and think. The screen showed bustling marketplaces where humans worked alongside aliens, selling goods and sharing stories. Human music became popular throughout the galaxy. Their movies and books were translated into hundreds of languages. Young aliens started wearing human-style clothing and adopting human customs. Zexathera activated footage of alien teenagers listening to human music and dancing in human styles. But the real change was deeper than fashion or entertainment. Humans began teaching their philosophy of cooperation and compassion. They showed other species that strength could come from helping instead of conquering. The image changed to show human teachers working in alien schools, human doctors treating alien patients, human engineers building bridges and hospitals. President Jack Miller visited our home world 2 years after the treaty was signed. He was supposed to be a defeated leader paying tribute to his conquerors. Instead, he was welcomed like a hero by crowds of our own people. The screen showed massive parades with aliens cheering for a human leader. Miller gave a speech to our planetary council. He thanked us for ending the war and praised our wisdom in choosing peace over continued conflict. He said the humans had learned valuable lessons about humility and cooperation. Zexathera stood up and walked to the window again. Then Miller announced the establishment of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. Humans would share their knowledge freely with any species that wanted to learn. In return, they asked only for the chance to learn from others. The old veteran looked out at the city where humans and aliens lived and worked together. Within 5 years, human colonies were the most prosperous in the galaxy, not because they had the best weapons or the strongest military, but because they had the best relationships with their neighbors. A cadet named Vex asked, "What happened to our military dominance?" It became irrelevant. You cannot conquer people who refuse to be your enemies. You cannot intimidate species who offer friendship instead of resistance. The screen showed trade agreements being signed, joint scientific projects being launched, and cultural festivals celebrating the diversity of galactic civilization. The humans taught us something we had never considered. True victory does not come from defeating your enemies. It comes from turning your enemies into friends. Zexathara turned back to face the class. Today, human ideas have spread to every corner of the galaxy. Democratic governments have replaced military dictatorships. Trade has replaced conquest as the primary means of expansion. Cooperation has replaced competition as the measure of success. The cadets looked around at each other with uncertain expressions. That is why I am here, teaching in this academy instead of commanding fleets. The old ways of thinking are dying. Military academies are becoming schools for peacekeepers and diplomats instead of warriors and conquerors. The screen showed the current curriculum of the academy, emphasizing negotiation, cultural understanding, and conflict resolution. The humans never tried to rule the galaxy. They did something much more effective. They taught the galaxy to rule itself through wisdom instead of force. Zexathara walked to the center of the room. You asked me on the first day if we won the war. Now you know the answer. We won every battle, but the humans won the peace. They lost their independence but gained the entire galaxy as friends and allies.